All right, here we are, stand-up / tactical Tuesday. Michelle is in Colorado and about to go to the airport, so why don't we start with her?
Yeah, I don't think I have much. Did office hours. Slept a lot. Not enough. Yeah, and work is continuing. You weren't here the other time, Quentin. So now our tests have a way to enter a date as today plus or minus however many days. So that may help with some of the kinds of inputs we need.
Great.
And there's something else being worked on right now, I think, but I'm not in the brain space to remember it. We're moving forward step by step.
Step by step.
Yeah. We've got some new messages for setup failures and stuff like that. Cool.
All right. Bryce.
Yes. So I wasn't there on Friday for the last stand-up, but essentially I did my best on trying to like get every single one of the like data field configure codes that like courts, the Tyler lets the courts set up and check. And at least I was able to sort of get the main bulk of like the features that were surrounding things. Like there was some leftover stuff that I realized I had missed on, like adding service contacts and adding attorneys to cases and such that I think we'll need for certification that are that I like just wasn't able to get in. I was able to get like most of those big sections in, but there's still like a handful of smaller things that we need to like. Maybe we'll need to check on the server. Maybe we'll need to like have like check on the proxy server, have it actually check some logic to make sure things are right. But more often than not, it's just something we're showing to the user or sort of like letting. It's much more like effective or useful when you're in the interview or somehow like on the DocAssemble side when you're filling out stuff. Like for example, there's like courts can take specific types of payments. And so if you made a credit card payment type for like Discover or something and they didn't take it, then you wouldn't be able to know that. And so it's one of those things of we would have to, instead of like we could just these are things that we can send to Tyler and they say, oh, like the payment came back wrong, or like this court doesn't take this type of payment. And it doesn't really make sense for us to check in the middleman and have essentially check on the proxy server like as the middleman and have essentially the exact same response to DocAssemble. And it would just also take like extra calls and waiting and stuff in the proxy server. So it's mostly, I've got it down to a handful of stuff that we just need to sort of show in the interview itself of, oh, like only these things are going to be accepted, like try again. And we can filter out on the DocAssemble side. And so I'm at least happy with where all that is. And so I was talking to Quentin essentially, and there's the two big things now are just like going through the admin interview and making sure it all works. It should be all there. And there's some stuff that we can polish, but there might be just a few bugs and we can check and make sure, oh, we need to add this little extra button to add some call that will be needed for certification. And then the other side is making the full like interview that lets you do any type of filing, which should be, it will be a bit of just like writing out a YAML file, but it's going to be as bare bones as possible. It will be still probably better than like Tyler's Silverlight application, but it's still just going to be as bare bones as possible in terms of, and it's going to be reusing a lot of, okay, get all of the like possible choices for this one option and show it on the server, and then user chooses that, and then okay, from that choice, get all of the possible options for this next question, and it's just a matter of coding up all of those questions, which is it shouldn't. It's like, again, it won't be super hard. It'll be just a decent amount of writing. I want to try and like get as far as I can on that in the next day or two. And then
And
essentially when that's done, it's a matter of we have all of the pieces in place and we just need to like test ourselves and make sure we can go through, which I would like for it to not take long, but I don't know how long it will take.
And is our plan to take those and structure them like on the admin and the other interview in similar chunks to the new? I know they just gave you a new certification document, which is just one document as opposed to the 50.
Yes.
And they had the headings, right? So are we going to have everything sort of under those headings, make it as easy for them as possible? Or at least set the large level headings like send, receive, or whatever they have. I just remember we had talked about that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Most of the headings are sort of just like distinct functionalities, and they're different like things that they are explicitly testing within that, but most of them are distinct functionalities. So I think as long as we might, like maybe we just split up the admin interview a bit more into like, oh, you want to deal with attorneys, here's like a sub menu, or you want to deal with service contacts or payments accounts and such. And each have its own little like sub page or whatever.
Yeah. Just to make it as easy as possible so they can just go through and just check the boxes in the certification.
Yeah. That is going to be the plan.
All right, cool.
So,
well, it sounds like that's moving along. So that's very exciting. Quentin, you were not here on our Wednesday call, and Michelle, you were not around for us to have a discussion. But sorry, Bryce. Anything else you want to add? We had a very nice call on Wednesday with the appeals court partner, and they basically said that they're ready to start playing around with e-filing through their Tyler system as soon as we're ready. So they're even like, oh, we could get you access to the sandbox or whatever. I'm like, wait, let us get the certification first, or in the very least, let us get this going. So when we put in for the certification, we'll be sure to say where our plans are immediately in Illinois and Massachusetts. Although my understanding is that now they're just doing the national certification, so I don't think that will have much of an effect. But it does mean that the beginning of next year, likely we can try to integrate with Massachusetts, which is super exciting to me.
Yeah, I saw that the team's message. That's great news.
I told Erica, and her response was, "I just spit out my coffee." The context being that we all thought this would be a very long time coming, but and of course, all the normal caveats. The court is not a monolith. Different parties can vie for different things, and although there's a court department that's ready to go, it doesn't always guarantee things. But we have a court department that's ready to go and has strong internal advocates for this. So I'm very excited. Great. Quentin, what do you have? And then I'll remind us that we had a couple of things we tabled because of your absence, and we can look back to those. I think the foremost one being forms for student work.
Oh, yes, that's a good thing to talk about for sure. Okay, so I'm just getting back into things this week, obviously after being out, but I'm going to look over the admin interview. I guess I'll probably have to check in with you a couple of times, Bryce, because I'm sure there's places where things probably overlap with what you're building. But I'll just try to go through and make sure there's like a bare bones way to do all the calls that are listed there, and then all the calls that are buttons you can click, do something.
Yes,
I'll start basically.
Perfect. Yeah.
Been trying to track down this weird item potency problem on Slack. Maybe someone else stalking me on Slack saw that doc symbol Slack. And meeting with the Suffolk DA's office today to help them with their DocAssemble installation. That should be pretty straightforward. This time we made sure that the server will work. Last time we tried to help somebody with it install a new install of the Docker package was broken, which was disconcerting to happen.
That's good. Once they have that up, then we can move over that will be useful. It's just like many months late, but obviously that they're in a very peculiar state right now because of the DA.
Yes.
Yeah.
Understandable.
So, entirely understandable.
That's it for me. I'm going to try, I'm gonna just try to work down the list. It's like a lot of moving pieces that we want to finish by September 30th. Biggest one, other than trying to get this admin interview up, which I think is first priority, is getting the fee waiver to match what Alea wants and integrating that and making that the first e-fileable thing. So I think all the pieces that the backend pieces we're working on before I went out, those are all working now. So that should be in pretty good shape for us to implement it in a meaningful way where you can figure out what case you want to file it into and then file it into that case. But that's it. It's going to be busy a couple of weeks for sure. But
Yeah.
Oh, and my other thing is trying to think about features that really should be polished before we start having new students use the Weaver and the assembly line package. Some things that are like, those are really easy for us to add and it will really improve their experience. And it'll be better for them to have it when they start using it for the first time. So I try to balance all of those things. And with that last thing being kind of the lowest priority, because obviously students have used what's been there just fine. Just trying to polish it before they have another batch of students is not as urgent as the other tasks.
Okay, cool. Another little bit of context, having not been here last week, but I think you were on the emails. Obviously, the Louisiana group, we've paused things in regards to IDA. So the Supreme Court there is still, last I checked, closed through the 15th. I think Amanda thinks she'll be able maybe to be on our call on Wednesday. I know she was having problems with power and connectivity. But Pew was very understanding. And so I think Pew is very understanding. And we've sort of done everything we can, and we'll re-engage with them when they're able to re-engage. And fingers crossed that goes quickly. But I think Pew's being understanding, and that means if we have the opportunity of getting the Illinois stuff out the door, that would be great.
Right.
So that,
well, where's our perspective on that though? Are we thinking, do we need to have something that's installed on production server to meet that? Because then maybe we should just.
Yeah, we hadn't really talked a lot about.
Well, for Illinois, we just have to have something that they're calling a. I think we just need to show that they can submit to the court. I have to check the language again, but it's there's some wiggle room as long as it's all built in sort of like the infrastructure that we anticipate.
So it's not necessarily the same place that we were trying to go for Louisiana in terms of like it being hosted.
Yeah, so Louisiana, they don't.
Public
yeah,
website.
Louisiana, we wanted it on their own servers because that was part of the expectation. But we weren't very. We didn't make a statement about that for Illinois. So, and we have we actually have explicitly in the new grant the expectation that we would maintain server and EFSP filing through our system. So if we have something that's live on what we call our production, then that's definitely it. If the question is whether or not something on testing that is able to do it is sufficient, I think there's an argument to be made there, but I think the main thing is if we can show that. I mean, it requires certification. If we have certification and the proxy server in place, and we can do a test serve or something with a court to say that it worked, then I think that would probably put us there.
We don't think that's the same for Louisiana. Like for Louisiana, it really has to be.
Yeah, for Louisiana, we think that because of the way it's structured, and well, that's an interesting question. We have an MOU with Louisiana's Supreme Court, which anticipates a certain outcome. So actually, let me disentangle the two sets of requirements. There's the MOU with Louisiana, and then there's the deliverable for Pew. I I would have to check the language with Pew. There might be an argument to be made that if we had it ready and sending to Jefferson Parish, that was sufficient for one part of our deliverable. I can't remember if there's like a requirement to have a public thing. So I'll have to check.
Just it might be worth like setting up a staging site where we just kind of have the things that we've done really polished and visible as like, hey, here's our deliverable. There's still more work to do for it to go live, but that's kind of expected after a 10-month grant that there's still more promotion.
I think some type of staging would be good. I think the nice thing about the Illinois one is Aleo can say, hey, here's our interview without any of the, the thing that stands between us and the deliverable in Jefferson Parish is primarily administrative. There's a couple of hours of technical work on their end, but the big thing is them saying, yes, we're ready. But I definitely think if we have everything up on a staging, that's better than not. If we have something from Aleo, and Aleo has something that's we can serve, they can serve it on their servers and use our proxy server, or we can serve it. There's just a lot more freedom because we didn't specify how that had to be done. So if we have something that we can say can send to court, and that ticks the box. Whereas Jefferson Parish, it's just a little more. The problem with Jefferson Parish is that it's not all e-filing, right? So it's print out and then e-filing in this one jurisdiction, and so there are multiple parties that sort of have weird things going on. Like Jefferson Parish is fine just to take our thing, but the court has to. It really is this administrative thing. It's the court saying like we.
Right.
I get that. We say these are ours. Yeah.
I was just wondering if we should budget in time to say, okay, we're going to have this interim deliverable, which is this. It'll meet our deliverable for PO, even though there's these other parts envisioned by our MOU with.
Yeah, let me look back over the deliverable. It may be that the versions of things on the testing server might be colorable as a thing. And the language is there's a little bit of wiggle room in the language because it says something about make available or will make a. I have to check. I just think it's a lot easier to clear if it's it really is that like the main problem is the Supreme Court has to say yes, these are the forms we want, which is sort of separate from the technical as well. It looks like maybe Michelle is heading off to her plane. Good luck, safe travels. So there's, so just whatever we can. I think we're really close on all fronts.
I know it will take time to package it up that way. So I was just thinking we should.
Yeah, I don't think we
be like a little branch off, but it might be worth it just to make it clear that, hey, Pew, we've done all this stuff, and here it is, it's ready, and you can look at it, even though there's more to make it live and relevant.
I think having
it takes some time to do that. That's all. So I just want to make sure we didn't.
Yeah, I think if we just think about it like having the test server version as ready as can be, I think that would probably tick most of the boxes there, because that's everything we can do up until the point where they say this is we bless this, we bring it onto our production server.
Right. So
given our test server, allows for.
Well, there's like no chance that the Supreme Court's going to approve this form and say, hey, this is the official form, and then all the courts will sign off on it, right? That's not going to happen.
No, and that's not the anticipation. The expectation is that someone at the Supreme Court just has to say, this is the one we want to bring on board. And always the expectation there has been that they're just hoping that if they put the stamp of the Supreme Court on it, that other courts will not turn it away. But what Pew cares about is the e-filing, and that's only in Jefferson Parish. And of course, we have the judge from Jefferson Parish on board. So,
okay.
And the test
budget some time for it. That's all. I know it feels like I know what we need, but just need to make sure to.
Right. Yeah. Well, the test server already
package it so they're both on one server, and so we can say, hey, here's our page with these and it will just be like a demo page for Pew to play
Yeah,
around
I
with.
feel like this is pretty much like what Bryce has put together for the testing and environment, because right now our testing environment works to send to Jefferson Parish. It's just not
Right.
public.
Yeah, and that's from what I understand, that should just be like we change a URL. Jefferson Parish gives us a different like API token to use when submitting stuff, and then we'd submit to a real thing. And so it's minimal change on our side to actually like, or at least minimal technical change to start filing to a real thing. And I think it's just whenever they're ready to start accepting of their real thing.
And that might not happen by the end of the month either, but
Yeah.
probably should be. I guess we should just pull up those deliverables and look at them at some point. And
Yeah, I have on my
way for us to package it to meet that.
I have on my list of to-dos this week to start working on the narrative report.
It just feels like we probably are okay for everything we can possibly do, or that we should have anticipated by September 30th. It should already be done. We just have to make sure it's easy for them to see it and evaluate it.
Yeah.
Regardless
And then
IDA is what I mean.
Yeah, no, agreed. So we'll have all that there, and we'll say, hey, look, here's a production ready version, to the extent that from a technical standpoint, obviously the Supreme Court wants to change this or that before they move it on to theirs, and they still have to finish setting theirs up. But otherwise, it's all ready for them to just take over. And then as close as we can get something on the Aleo side, the same deal. Feels like they're the thing that will be the bottleneck, will probably be the certification. We can get everything else ready in parallel. And there we could probably even have the live forms absent the e-sending, ready, and then you could just enable the sending when the sending happens, right?
We could probably have
already designed in
probably
such
want
a
to
way
have the live form without e-sending, e-filing turned on, and then also the demonstration one that does the test fake file.
Yeah. My point is that if we have the live one up that doesn't do the e-sending, and then we get certification, then we can basically just turn it on.
Exactly.
So we can have everything queued up so that it's all ready to go.
We should just turn our deliverables into a checklist so that we can see that, just like we're doing for the Tyler certification checklist.
Okay, well, I can do that then, and we'll share that back out.
Okay.
All right. And then we had the things that we tabled while you were gone, which were some discussion of forms for students to work on. I think there were some deep dive stuff, discussion that maybe got tabled, but that's not this call. So I guess we could. So where do we think we stand with forms? I guess we have the new. Aubrey had done as much as she could to throw things into the Trello.
I guess there's two things, right? Like one is, are there forms that students did over the summer that need a little bit of finishing stuff so they can really go live? I'm not really going to prioritize those till October, but we should. Those. We didn't launch any forms from the summer, right? Like we didn't.
We could conceivably launch the interpreter notice. I just haven't gone through and looked at it. It's a standalone form though, so there wasn't a lot of, we felt the real value was when it got tied into other things. But we could conceivably launch that.
That would still be nice.
Yeah. All right.
But that's a different question, I guess, than new forms, because that's the more urgent one, right? Let's see. So
I'm just trying to never know if I'm in the right. I feel like this is the wrong board.
Should we be even using our old triage list? I know it wasn't the most convenient for students.
Oh,
to
I'm not
sign
looking at the
on.
triage list. I
Oh.
was looking at the board because everything should have been moved over to the Trello.
New forms that no one started yet, too.
Yeah, Ari was supposed to put them in the backlog. So I
Oh.
was trying to find them.
So would that be on board one
There's one.
probably?
There's a whole lot on the backlog and board.
Backlog.
Yeah, there we go. Nice access.
Are those ones that weren't even started, basically?
Yeah, if they're in the backlog, they're
Okay.
Someone has done some things for them, but I
Mhm.
guess actually no, looking more at the check boxes, they're mostly someone has added it to the board.
yeah. So Aubrey did an excellent job moving things over.
So this was basically our original triage list that got
This is the
turned.
triage list plus some because the triage list didn't have everything. So this is the more complete list. This is now the canonical list.
Let me share it just so we report it too. So it's this one right here, right?
Give me a second, I got it.
It's backlog.
I believe so.
Yeah,
Yes, that looks right.
Nice.
That's what I
Okay.
was looking at. Yeah.
So if there's no name on these, then we could ask students to assign themselves to one of the forms. Let me put my name on this one. So I'd started it. I don't think anyone's had to fill this out. This was the appeals court wanted this, and I was like, oh yeah, we'll be able to get that really quickly. I haven't yet, but I don't think anyone's needed it yet either. Someone definitely started this one. One of my students. I should have cut yes, but
So then I suspect what happened there is that this might be an issue where something was brought over from the triage list, but wasn't aware of work that someone had done elsewhere.
well, I'm looking at this yellow label, and I think that's telling me that there is something,
Oh yeah, it requires developer.
and there is a
review.
GitHub
Yeah,
link to it. There we
there
go.
we go.
Okay, so it wouldn't be a good project for someone to start, probably. But yeah, so that actually is,
Tells us everything we wanted to know.
yeah. All right, yeah, so sometimes students didn't quite figure out how to use GitHub the way that we intended. Okay.
Oh, another thing that happened, which was last Friday's meeting, we got a new volunteer basically just for this month, who's a recent graduate who's waiting to start their law job in October. And so it's just looking for something to do. And they had a little bit of Python experience. So they picked up from the grab bag, we shot them at the grab bag, and they picked up the smart docketing task. So they're building a little function to parse docket numbers, parse and validate docket numbers. So
Great.
we'll see what progress gets made. They seem to be having fun doing it. So so that was just a little heads up there.
Nice. Okay. Geez, this is redundant. Okay, sorry. Having trouble in this interface. So I guess I'm looking at this. This seems like it's pretty easy to see. I'd want to know, is there a way to see how many cars there are?
That's an interesting question.
No.
Might be in the menu on the right. There might be a summary, board summary. That's a long shot, so I have no idea if it's
This board
there's
menu?
anything actually there.
No, I think it means over on the far right.
Yeah, there's a show
you said,
menu
right.
on that, right? I'm mostly just trying to see if there might be some oh, here's a summary of your board and all the stuff you've done. I feel like that would be the thing that would
Yeah,
have a list or like account somewhere, but
one of these might work too. But okay, so something, basically people could scan this list. They could see all the details here. This actually is interesting. It'll let me give students a little bit more context when they start looking at the forms and pick them. I guess we should do a little tour of this. I wonder if we need more though.
Probably, especially since not all of them are, from scratches. And it would be hard to sort of, I think, jump in on someone else's work.
Yeah. Well, and then the other thing that's missing is the size. So
Yeah, figuring out is this a good,
I want someone to take this one.
good scope. Yeah. Oh, that sounds cool. Yeah, let me do that. I'll polish that off. A couple days work.
And we didn't end up assigning anyone to this, right?
No.
Okay.
We've sort of been, so as far as the labs and fellow folks have gone, we've mostly stayed working with old stuff, although there is a student. Yeah, we mostly stayed working with old stuff. And you're still sharing, just so you know that you're still sharing.
Yeah, I'm just going to add a link to this one since we're looking at it. This is the right place to go. This is the am I eligible? Oop. Nope. There we go. Sorry.
All right, so now I'm trying to see how many is that.
So I wonder if there's any way sorting we should do with that.
So like 27 of them. The ones at the bottom are the ones with the yellow tag, which either requires collaborative work. So it sounds like those should be at the bottom. We could sort of put the most appropriate near the top, or I don't know if we want to sort it by ease, sort it by priority. I mean, our priority might take into account ease.
And do we want to add like either a sticker or a label to mark the difficulty, or?
It's not a bad idea.
Or like, hey, good first form, like good first issue.
Yeah, it seems like maybe a sticker for like starter form would be.
Had someone started the subpoena thing? I feel like that sounds really familiar.
Well, it sounds familiar because Caroline was the one who brought it up.
So we've talked about it, but it hasn't been.
Yeah, we've talked about it. She wanted someone to pick it up, and she was excited about the notion that people might pick things up.
Okay.
But I don't think anyone started on it.
So that's that. So one thing I'm noticing is like there are forms that have names on them. I would mostly tell people, don't put your name.
Yeah, well, some of the ones that have names seem to be ones that maybe were started.
Right. But Caroline actually wants someone to work on that one.
Yeah.
So maybe we should take her name off of it. But that would. Okay, so it's not story. Okay, so it's just that one really. I'm going to take Caroline's name off of it.
There are a couple when you get further down of ones that seem like they were started that have a couple people's names on it. Or, well, no, I don't see. I only see one. But I signed it.
And then people will have their own ideas, but a lot of people just like to look at the list and see something that they could do. I don't know why it doesn't let me. Okay, it's just a little slow. Do we want to let people? One thing we could do is add the individual housing motion forms that we had people working on last year, motions to dismiss. But those were kind of a little bit less meaningful until someone had gathered them into one big thing. That could be something people might work on. And then also keeping in mind, like, do we want people to be like things that we might pick up later? It's a priority. These all seem good though. This seems like a pretty good. And then you said there were 27, and there's like maybe 3 or 4 people shouldn't take on. That's actually
Yeah, that's about right.
I'm going to move this to the bottom, and maybe we just need a label for like big form, not rather than easy form.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could go at it either way, right, from either side.
The only thing I'm thinking is like this, as I look at this list, that's the only one I know is like, it's not really one form, it's a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, constellation of forms. There we go. The label should be some stars. It's a constellation of forms.
I'll do that for now. We can always delete that.
Yeah. I get the sense my students might have, I don't know, maybe it's overly optimistic on my part, but my students might have interests other than just doing an assembly line form. I'm sure there will be some students who do assembly line forms. I just don't think all of them will.
Yeah, and I suspect out of like, I have like 16 students. I'm going to encourage them to be in groups, but I'm assuming I'll have like 4 or 5, or maybe even more students that will want to do like it, or as a group will want to do some group of these forms, because we'll be training them a lot on it. So the other place we could like send them to is just, there's like a list of just court forms.
Yeah.
Stuff you can browse, right? And it's huge.
Sure. Find something here that looks manageable and bite-sized.
What things they have here. Some of them I wouldn't let people encourage people to do though, right? Like I wouldn't want them to do. Help people with their jury trial. All right. So I was looking to see if they had the answer up here. That's the main thing. It's like, oh, I wouldn't want to have people do the answer because yes, there's an official answer, but I wouldn't encourage people to use that one. But these actually all look fine. I mean, they just may not be the most high value, or they might be exercising rights that we don't want necessarily streamline for people because they could be adverse consequences rather than being helpful in the case. But they're still not necessarily bad. So this might be a place for people to look that's broader than our list, but they would just need a lot more judgment to figure out what's a good form to work on.
Right. I think that's a good failover state, right? Look at the existing forms, see if there's one there that strikes your interest. Touch base with us to, with your instructor about scope. And then if none of those, if you don't find any of those interesting, do the same thing on this other list. My students will be coming up to their check-in on decisions here in 2 weeks. So that's our 4th meeting class when I start to really ride them about, have you decided on something yet?
I think the same timeline I have to do it like week 5.
Yeah, so that's effectively it's effectively the 5th week of classes, but it's just that it's only our 4th meeting because of the Monday holiday. Oh, and I have a request from the HDP, the housing testing folks, who wanted something. And as I had talked with you before, it might be a Power Automate thing, or
Oh, right. I forgot. That was it's like just a data collection thing, right?
yeah, it's just a data collection thing. I can share that with you too. I shared it with my students, but no one's bitten yet. So,
is there anything, since we're just getting this free time, I guess we should decide if we still want to record the thing or not.
well, here, why don't we can stop recording now. We've sort of moved away from. We're moving into tangential space, so we'll stop recording unless anyone has any.
But we'll still keep this time, right?
Assembly, yes.